Hi everyone, welcome back to the BoldSign API tutorial. In this video, I'll show you how to send a document for signing using the OAuth Authorization Code flow in a Node.js app. You'll learn how to generate an access token, make API calls, and use the refresh token to get a new access token. Before diving into the code, let me give an overview of how the OAuth Authorization Code flow works. BoldSign supports OAuth 2.0 for secure API access, using workflows such as client credentials, implicit, and authorization code flows. I've covered the client credentials and implicit flows in previous videos. Check the links in the description if you've missed them. Now let's dive into the OAuth authorization code flow. Authorization code flow is commonly used in server-side and mobile apps to securely access APIs on behalf of users. It involves obtaining an authorization code, which is exchanged for an access token to access protected resources. Proof key for code exchange, PKCE, adds an extra layer of security to the authorization code flow by preventing interception attacks. It ensures that only the original requester can exchange the authorization code for an access token. This is done by generating a code verifier, a random string, and a code challenge its hash, which are checked by the server during the exchange process. Let me demonstrate how the authorization code flow works. When users log in, they're redirected to the authorization URL with parameters like client ID, state, redirect URI, scope, and code challenge. The BoldSign login page appears first where you log in. After logging in, the consent page is displayed to review and grant permissions. Then you are redirected back to the provided redirect URI with the authorization code, scope, and state. Next, exchange the authorization code for access tokens by making a POST request to the token URL. This will return the access token, expiry time, token type, refresh token, and scope. Once you have the access token, you can make BoldSign API calls. If the access token expires, you can use the refresh token to get a new one by providing client credentials to the authorization server. The refresh token has two expiry modes, absolute expiry and sliding expiry. In absolute expiry mode, the token is valid for 30 days from the time it is issued. Once this period ends, the user must log in again to obtain a new token. In contrast, sliding expiry allows the token's validity to be extended by another 30 days each time it is used. This means the user does not need to log in again as long as the token remains active and is used within the expiry window. Now let me show you the code to generate the access token and make API calls. I've created a Node.js app using Express and installed the BoldSign Node.js SDK package. I confirm the installation by running npm list BoldSign. The package is installed and ready to go. On the startup page, there's a login button, which calls the authorization method. The first step in the authorization process is generating a PKCE code using the generate PKCE codes method. This method returns a code verifier, a randomly generated 32-character string encoded in base 64 URL format, and a code challenge SHA-256 hashed version of the code verifier, also encoded in base 64 URL format. I also generate a random string for the state and store both the code verifier and state in the session for validation during the authorization code exchange. I set the authorization URL with parameters like response type, state, client ID, redirect URL, scope, code challenge, and code challenge method. Next, I redirect the URL to the client side by passing authorization URL as the response. I've set the authorization URL and token URL and specified the scopes open ID, email, and profile for basic user details, offline access for refresh tokens, and BoldSign documents all for full document access. Next, I need to set the client credentials and redirect URL. To generate the client credentials, I navigate to the BoldSign web app, expand the API menu settings, and select OAuth apps. From there, I click on the Create a New App button, which opens a dialog box. I enter the application name, then set the redirect URL to specify where the user should be redirected after permission is granted. I also choose the billing option, deciding whether charges should apply to my user's account or my account. Finally, I set the refresh token expiry mode to absolute and save the app. Now I'm going to set these client credentials and redirect URL in my app. On the client side, upon a successful call, I redirect the login page to the authorization URL. The next step is to handle the redirect page. I need to add a view and action method for a callback. I add an action method and pass the code and state values from the query parameters. Before proceeding with the code exchange, I check if the state received in the request matches the original state stored in the session. If it does not, it indicates a potential CSRF attack. To prevent this, I stop the process and redirect the page to show an error message. If it matches, I pass the code to obtain the access token. I switch to developer documentation and navigate to authorization code flow, where you will find the detailed documentation along with sample code snippets. I copy the Node.js code snippets on obtaining access tokens from the code and paste them into the redirect method. In the request parameters, I pass the grant type as authorization code, following which I set the client ID, client secret, code, redirect URL, and code verifier. I save the access token and refresh token in the session. You can store these tokens based on your preference, but be sure to handle them securely. The request returns the responses as a query string. I clear the query string from the URL and redirect the URL without the query string. Next, I'll show you how to make API calls with the access token. I have already created a view for the callback page where I have added two buttons, one to send the document for signing and the other to get a new access token. Now let me add the code for these button actions. First, I add the code to send the document for signing. I switch the developer documentation and copy the Node.js code snippets for sending the document. I paste the code into the send document method, update the document form fields and file path, and add the signer details such as name and email. Finally, I return the document ID. Instead of passing the API key, I pass the bearer access token, which I retrieve from the session. Upon a successful call, I display the document ID as an alert message. Next, to create a new access token, when the old one expires, there are two options. You can generate a new one using a refresh token without re-authenticating, or you can log in from scratch by generating the authorization code. Let me show you how to generate a new access token with the refresh token. To do this, I switch to developer documentation on refresh tokens. I copy the Node.js code snippets and paste them into the refresh token action method. Here, the grant type is refresh token. I set the client ID, client secret, and refresh token from the session. This will call the token URL, which provides a new access token. I update the tokens in the session. Upon a successful call, I display an alert message token refreshed. Next, I save the files and run the sample. The sample is now launched. I log in and navigate to the BoldSign login page. After entering the credentials and logging in, it directs me to the consent page. You can see the requested scopes that require permission to be granted. After verification, I select Allow. It will then redirect me to the page specified when creating the app. I select the Send Document option to send the document for signing. The document ID is created showing that the document was successfully sent for signing. Next, I select the Refresh Token option, which displays an alert with the message Tokens Refreshed, indicating that new tokens have been generated and stored in the session. If I try to send the document again, it will use the new access token to send the document for signing. See, the document has been successfully sent for signing. That's it. If you found this video helpful, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to our channel for more BoldSign API tutorials.